Hello everyone, and welcome to part 3 of my hit series covering the darkest secrets that the MLP series has to offer. Today we'll look at 10 new secrets scoured from the depths by yours truly for your viewing pleasure. We'll explore the dark implications hidden behind scenes that seem to end with resolution, the dangers of alicorn magic, the existence of a disease that has in some cases been fatal, subtle scenes involving cannibalism, and much, much more. So join me once again as I expose 10 more dark MLP secrets. If you've followed the series up until now, I'll offer my usual disclaimer. This video does contain slight MLP spoilers from later seasons. You've been warned. And now, with that out of the way, let's begin. Here are 10 more dark MLP secrets. Number 1. Gummy's teeth. This one has bothered me for a very long time. Gummy the alligator has, since his duet on the show, appeared with one very key feature missing. He has no teeth. When Pinkie Pie introduces him as her pet, she loudly advertises the fact that he's safe to be around because he has no teeth to bite with. Then, in the continued scene, he proceeds to bite her multiple times with no effect, as if to further prove her point. As comical as this scene may be, Gummy's situation, in all reality, is far darker than most viewers would imagine. At first it seems like Pinkie might have had Gummy's teeth removed, much like when people declaw a cat. However, usually when a cat is declawed, there are various reasons. Sometimes the cat has been destructive, and other times it's acted aggressively towards its owners. And while I don't believe that it's right to subtract any portion of an animal's anatomy for any reason, the practice of declawing is still quite common even to this day. So initially, it would seem that perhaps Gummy was violent or even destructive, which led his owner to consider removing his teeth altogether. But that's where things take a very dark turn. You see, normally, alligators regrow lost teeth throughout their lifetime. In fact, when a tooth is lost, it can be replaced in as little as 2 months. The only reason that a tooth would fail to regenerate is because of extensive or repeated damage. Teeth are extremely important to alligators, as they regularly use them to seize and hold prey before consumption. So, when we consider Gummy's condition, 2 startling truths come to light. With the power of regeneration, it's fair to say that at some point Gummy's teeth had come back. However, since we never see him with teeth, it's also fair to assume that each time he regrows a tooth, it's removed, whether by Pinkie Pie herself or even by some other pony. And, since he has no teeth, he's completely and utterly dependent on Pinkie Pie to offer him the proper diet in a way in which he can still digest it. This entire situation is extremely dark and very sad when you get down to the root of the reason that poor Gummy has no teeth. And it paints his owner in a new light as well. Is their toxic relationship dependent upon Gummy's need for her assistance to survive? Since this show never really goes into it, that may be left up to our interpretation. But, knowing animals as well as I do, I can't help but highlight this unfortunate plot choice and its dark implications. Number 2. Naysay and species discrimination. If you've been with my Dark MLP Secrets series from the very start, you'll know that we've already touched on the topic of alicorn gender discrimination. However, that's not the only case of discrimination in the MLP universe. In the episode School Days, we're introduced to Chancellor Naysay, the head of the Equestrian Education Association, or EEA for short. The story also informs us that he's part of a board of scholars who oversee all of the accredited schools in the entirety of Equestria. Just that fact alone lets us know just how important he is, and how widely accepted his beliefs are. As the episode continues, he displays a very narrow mindset, discriminating against any species that isn't a pony. That includes hippogriffs, griffins, changelings, dragons, and even yaks. He refers to them as dangerous, unacceptable, and even aggressive, shortly after an accident involving some students occurs. Without giving too much about the episode away, Chancellor Naysay is a strongly opinionated character who isn't afraid to verbally express his opinions. Unlike the possible gender discrimination that we spoke about before, Naysay's clear discrimination against species is vocally expressed, leaving no doubt in our minds as to how he actually feels. I can clearly say that this reminds me strongly of some of the issues that we're currently facing, in the way that people tend to abuse their power of free speech to harm others. Anyone in a place of power has the awesome responsibility to represent what is fair, just, and ultimately right. Discrimination against species, minorities, and/or race is absolutely unacceptable. And while the way that Naysay feels isn't necessarily a secret, its real-life connection may be. Often enough, we watch a show like MLP, see an issue, observe it resolved, and then just go on with our lives. But with issues like discrimination, it's important that we carry such lessons with us even long after the TV has been turned off. Number 3. Pinkie Pie's family. I've been meaning to touch on this topic for a really long time, and in all reality, it could be an entire video all on its own. It's something that can't be denied and is hardly misunderstood. The first time we see Pinkie Pie's family is during the retelling of the story in which she got her cutie mark. She describes the rock farm as an impressive environment in which her and her siblings are forced to farm rocks while being forbidden to talk, laugh, or even smile. As the memory plays out, we can hear a dinner bell being rung and Pinkie Pie's father slamming the door before Pinkie herself can enter. Already, little more than 17 seconds into the story, red flags are already popping up in my mind. Because it's extremely possible that Pinkie Pie's family is an animated representation of what a traditional Amish family may look like, and that for whatever reason, she's being shunned, excluded from daily activities, disregarded, and kept from joining her family. After young Rainbow Dash performs a sonic rain boom and a rainbow fills the sky, Pinkie Pie quotes, "I'd never felt joy like that before." And this leads me to believe that even though she's relatively young, her life has been nothing but drudgery, hardships, and trial after trial. After seeing something so wonderful, the only thing that she can think about is wanting to share that experience with her family. However, it's during this that we realize just how estranged she actually is. As the episode progresses, we watch her spend the entire night preparing things in a silo on the family's property, and never once does anyone come looking for her. Again, this leads me to believe that her neglect was accepted not only by both of her parents, but also by her siblings. After her family finally joins her to experience the party that she'd prepared, things do sort of seem to resolve themselves. The family begins smiling, breaks into dancing, and is pictured enjoying the event to the fullest. But as the series continues and we travel back to the rock farm, we can see that Pinkie's family has returned back to their steadfast ways and truly hasn't changed at all. Most Amish families operate with set rules, boundaries, and laws that prohibit them from doing many of the things that are commonplace in the modern world. However, if someone from an Amish family does happen to break that mold, it's often one of their last mistakes, as the family would then be forced to distance themselves, or even remove that person from their community altogether. Often enough, this is referred to as shunning, a practice in which members of the Amish community are openly encouraged to practice a form of social exclusion regarding whoever it is that has been proven to have gone against their lifestyle rules or regulations. All in all, it's a sad practice that goes against the loving nature of what families should be. Forgiveness is withheld and exclusion is praised. Seeing that possibility shown in MLP is both sad, unfortunate, and deeply disturbing. Thankfully, we don't see shunning practiced heavily in the continuation of the series, but just the fact that it was there way back at the beginning when Pinkie Pie was a filly leads it to be on this list, as the idea itself is dark and deeply disturbing all the same. Number 4. Twilight Sparkle and Mind Control. Throughout the MLP series, we're shown that unicorn and alicorn magic is strong, powerful, and extremely dangerous. So much so that when Twilight's magic went out of control during her entrance exam for Princess Celestia's school, she accidentally turned her living parents into plants. The fact that she turned them from living, breathing mammals into a biologically differential species is downright frightening. I mean, consider what that would mean if you and I could spontaneously revert living mammals into something that wasn't even sentient. But that's not the only shocking moment involving Twilight Sparkle and her wielding of dangerous unicorn power. In the episode Lesson 0, when Twilight can't find a friendship problem, she decides to make one by enchanting her old toy with a spell. The Want It, Need It spell causes ponies to be infatuated by whatever item it's cast upon, and with this comes some extremely catastrophic results. This spell allows Twilight to manipulate ponies' minds by all but erasing their ability to express impulse control. This causes them to argue, tussle with each other, and lose what seems like all of their sensibility. Unlike some of the more harmless spells, this one sends at least half of Ponyville into an uproar, and the mindset is transmitted at a ridiculously quick rate. All that it takes for the symptoms to spread is for some pony to look at the item in which the spell was cast. The situation becomes completely uncontrollable in the span of just a little over half of a minute. Now, while the strongest pony in the tussle is undoubtedly Big Mac, just imagine what may have happened if a villain were passing through. The scene might have turned into a bloody massacre. With this level of mental manipulation and mind alteration, Twilight's faithful Want It, Need It spell earns itself a place on this list with its potential to turn rivalry into murder. If Celestia hadn't been nearby to assist her, who knows what could have happened. Number 5. Swamp fever is fatal. In the episode A Health of Information, Zecora falls into a pond in the forest and ends up being poisoned by a dangerous flower. When she goes to the doctor for a diagnosis, she's told that she has an incurable condition called swamp fever. The symptoms include change in coat and coughing up bubbles. But that's not what makes this condition most worrying. The final stage includes the sufferer succumbing to the disease and turning into the very same flowering plant that originally infected them. As the doctor shows Zecora his medical textbook, a life cycle can be seen, and that's what makes this dark secret number 5. The final stage, before a pony is converted into a plant, is undoubtedly the most worrying. Because it's not simply a magical transformation, but something far more disturbing in my book. Now, it's not expressly explained this way, but this is my interpretation. In the doctor's book, the state that precedes the final transformation depicts a pony covered in spots, lying prone on the ground, and clearly in some form of distress. This leads me to believe that the infection at this point would overwhelm its host and begin to hamper their ability to function, ultimately causing an untimely death. Then, the disease inside their body would begin to thrive, gaining the needed nutrients from their corpse. This process would then allow the toxic flower to bloom again, starting the treacherous cycle once more as it uses its host's decaying corpse like compost. While it's not explained that way by the doctor himself, I think the pictures in his textbooks say enough. This terrifying illness is one that ultimately leads to death, making swamp fever's frightening reality soul-shaking. Even though this episode does have a happy ending, the idea that if Fluttershy hadn't acted quickly enough, Zecora might have died and had her corpse turned into a tree's compost is altogether dark and very disturbing to me. Number 6. Derpy had surgery. The episode Where the Apple Lies is truly a treasure trove of secrecy. Hidden cameos, horrifying medical conditions, and a crackling storyline make it one of the most enthralling episodes to watch, at least in my book. And even though I've covered it more than once in the latest episodes, I've returned once again to highlight something you may have missed. In yet another panning hallway scene, you can see one of our favorite characters standing off to the side, and her eyes are completely wrapped in gauze. If you look closely, this pony is none other than the much-beloved Derpy hooves. As you can guess, since the story takes place quite some time ago, this scene provides us with an idea as to what Derpy may have attempted to do about her eye condition. While this scene doesn't seem to show us exactly what happened, it is clear that she had some sort of surgery, since she's standing next to a surgeon who's decked out in a cap and gown. We know that if this surgery was meant to fix her eyes, then it clearly didn't work, since she can be seen in subsequent episodes with both eyes looking off in different directions. But what if this scene is even darker? What if she had an optical surgery for a relatively normal reason, that then, for some reason, wasn't performed correctly and ultimately left her with lasting issues? What if her eyes had actually been normal before this operation? While I'm still relatively unsure about what exactly happened here, either way, it's very heartbreaking to see her standing there smiling hopefully, with gauze wrapped around her head. Either she believes that the surgery to fix her eyes was a success, or she doesn't know that her eyes have been damaged whatsoever. Either way, it's a dark thought that'll bother me even after this video is over. Number 7. Flutterbat, amnesia, and a cliffhanger ending. Here we have yet another case of magic gone wrong. And interestingly enough, once again, Twilight is more or less at fault. But that aside, this is another instance in which magic has some pretty drastic and dark results. In the episode Bats, a group of vampire fruit bats begins to terrorize Applejack's orchard. But, while attempting to fix the issue, Fluttershy is accidentally turned into a creature that's half pony, half vampire fruit bat. What makes this even more concerning is that while in that sort of a condition, she seems to be able to change her bodily structure to resemble various bat-like features, and even seems to have lost all of her personal attributes. She no longer recognizes her friends, but instead hisses at them, charges them, and even evades capture using her new bat-like abilities. And, as if that wasn't already dangerous enough, once the all-encompassing spell has finally been reversed, she has absolutely no memory of the events that happened during her time as Flutterbat. This sort of amnesia is dangerous, especially paired with the fact that she failed to recognize her friends during her time in that sort of an altered headspace. A million things could have gone drastically wrong during that time, just like with the Want It Need It spell. Thankfully, Flutterbat was contained in the orchard during her time as a bat pony, but even so, cornered animals of any breed or type can bite when frightened. Bats in particular can carry a deadly viral disease called rabies, which is transmitted through such bites. All in all, many things could have gone wrong, but that's not what bothers me the most about this incident. During the final moments of the episode, you can see that while Fluttershy is laughing, she still has the sharp teeth of a bat, meaning that some of the bat-like characteristics could still be within her. And, unlike horses who have teeth meant for grinding, clipping grass, and picking up food, those sharp bat-like incisors could do a lot of harm. While she's seen in the episode with such a feature, it doesn't reappear during subsequent episodes, so we may never really know why such a simple feature seemed to last for as long as it did. Either way though, it's definitely unsettling, since the incident was dangerous, and I'm sure the resulting amnesia was hard to cope with. Number 8. Pinkie Pie clones. I'm sure we all remember the fateful episode Too Many Pinkie Pies, where Pinkie Pie decides to clone herself in the reflection pool. At first, it was a fun experience in which the clones took over the town with their overt personalities and excitable antics. But, very quickly, things got way out of hand as the real Pinkie Pie was obscured by her own personal army, and it was impossible for any pony else to tell the difference between her and the copied versions she'd made of herself. During a rather brutal elimination session, Twilight rules out the existences of Pinkie's copies using a rigorous test. When any one of the Pinkies fails, they're sentenced to death by explosion, which, in and of itself is pretty gruesome once you realize that the copied Pinkies do share some sort of collectively similar conscience and an elevated sense of self-awareness. That's not what makes this dark secret number 8, though. Once the real Pinkie Pie is finally found, there is celebration and ultimately resolution. However, by a ridiculous stroke of luck, some of the other clones did in fact survive. We're even able to note 2 remaining clones in 2 different episodes later on during the series. One appears in a dance sequence, clearly having changed her appearance to remain somewhat anonymous, and the other stealthily appears in the background during a well-timed shot in full view of the camera pony, who's interviewing the real Pinkie Pie in the foreground. Just how these 2 Pinkie Pies escaped annihilation is anyone's guess, but their existence really can't be argued. They're there, they're real, and they're living their lives even late into the series. What makes this one of my dark secrets is because of the implication that the existence of these clones could have. While one doesn't exactly resemble Pinkie Pie to a T anymore, the other does. And at any point, either of these clones could begin living her life, and they may not be suspected by those around her, like the first clones were. More concerningly, these 2 have lasted far longer and been given the chance to observe Ponyville and its inhabitants. With enough time and training, they could even take over Pinkie Pie's life in a twist of fate, and begin to cause havoc once again, just like the original clones did. However, this time, it may be near impossible to tell them apart. That thought alone is what lands a secret on the list. The clones are watching on. What they'll do next is anyone's guess, but I'm certain that for Pinkie Pie, it will be life-changing. Number 9. Parasprites. No one can forget the cute but incredibly destructive Parasprites that appear in the episode Swarm of the Century. Not only do they completely wreak havoc on the town, but they also reproduce at an alarming rate and spread extremely quickly due to their ability to fly. During their infestation of Ponyville, it's discovered that they are sensitive to music, and Pinkie Pie is able to lead the entire swarm dancing out of town. It's not what happens on screen that makes this a dark secret, but it's the implication that we're left with after the credits roll. At the end of the episode, Princess Celestia remarks that Parasprites are already infesting Philadelphia, and that she has to head off to assist in their containment. As the episode ends, we're given a view of a Parasprite-free field, and the main 6 laughing about the fate of Philadelphia. But what we don't see is just where Ponyville's Parasprites have marched off to. Instead of being annihilated, they were simply allowed to file off into what we can only visually observe as the Everfree Forest. However, if we take a close look at the map of Equestria, we know that directly beyond the Everfree Forest is Ghostly Gorge, and beyond that is Lost Pegasus. Which means that if the Parasprites did in fact leave Ponyville headed west, then it's likely that as they travel and increase in numbers, they'll run into another city to destroy. Much like a traveling swarm of locusts, they devastate the surrounding areas unless their existence is ultimately ended. And since Pinkie Pie simply led them out of Ponyville, then they're left to invade the next area. Again, this doesn't happen while the cameras are rolling, but it is definitely implied. And while Pinkie Pie agrees to travel with her tuba to help mitigate, I feel like Celestia had a different version of help prepared for the Parasprites in Philadelphia. Again, just like with a swarm of locusts, the only way to stop the spread is to decimate as much of the population as possible to avoid the eventual mass destruction. Either way, the image is a dark one. On one hand, Parasprites may be being murdered en masse, while on the other, they may simply be being led from town to town in an endless trail of destruction until their lifespan ends. I really don't know personally which idea is worse. Let me know in the comments below what you prefer. Number 10. Ponies consume meat. Over the entire length of the MLP series, the idea of ponies consuming meat has come up time and time again. However, we're assured repeatedly that hay burgers aren't made with meat, and the only time a hot dog actually appears on screen, it's very clearly just a carrot in a bun. But there is one scene in the series that still claims a prominent place in my memory. I repeatedly looked for the exact episode, but couldn't get a definitive answer. So I'll just show you the images I stumbled across. It may have been 2 different shots of the same scene, but in both, a sandwich is pictured with a familiarly colored slab of what looks to be meat resting inside. In fact, Applejack is depicted turning towards the sandwich, looking at it with her mouth open, and then turning away. It was almost as if she realized what was being served and didn't agree with it at all. This leads me to believe that even if the main 6 don't all condone eating meat, at least some ponies in Ponyville serve meat anyways. And since ponies are creatures that are very similar to other farm animals depicted in the series, this would undoubtedly be considered a form of cannibalism. That's right, you heard me right, cannibalism. And while we don't see it happening on screen, it's enough to simply know that meat is offered at a social gathering without disgrace. That, guys, is darker than dark in my opinion. Hey guys, thanks for watching until the very end. You guys have been absolutely begging me for a part 3 to this series, and I finally managed to gather up enough secrets to give you what you've been wanting. Some were kind of a bit of a stretch, but it's honestly becoming harder and harder for me to actually find good secrets as I go on. The MLP series is definitely a long one, but finding actually good secrets that I can kind of expound upon has definitely become really hard. Now that the MLP FIM series has come to an end, I will be looking for new secrets from the next installment of the MLP series. If you guys haven't heard about any of that, then please look it up, because we're sitting on the edge of our seats right now waiting for it to come out, and I can tell you, I'm excited, guys, if you can't tell. Anyway, hopefully you're all keeping tabs on the newest developments, and by the time it comes out, we can all have a chat about it, as I'm sure I will be doing anyway. Depending on whether you guys want to hear about that or not. There's some leaked information out right now that you can check out if you type in the right stuff, but I will leave that up to you guys, and then I will see you in the near future. If that series or movie, I'm not sure, I have to look it back up. I think it's a movie originally and then it's going to be a series. I don't remember. This is my brain at the end of the day. But if it does end up being a series, then it might be up to me to start looking for new dark secrets from the newest developments in this series as it goes on. Anyway, guys, I'm super excited to see where the fandom goes from here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's been a long time coming, but having finally uploaded, I feel so much better, and you know what? It was worth it. Alright guys, I love you all and stay awesome.